Hello, everyone. I'm very excited today to introduce Ian Clark, who I was so lucky to meet on the Miami tour when Nick Veniamin recently visited. And we all met in the evening and had a lovely time, me, you, and some of the other truthers. And we also were able to have a tour of the Centner Wellness Center while we were in Miami. And so we had a very nice couple of days, didn't we, Ian?
That was pretty much the most fun we've had in quite a while. That was really exciting.
It really was. And the restaurant that we were in was waterside, and it was a very nice location when we all went into the evening and to relax from the day. And I just thought the whole group of us, it was a lovely mix of people, very high vibration. And I learned a lot of things that day from people, and particularly from you, Ian, because even though I did know about you from Nick Veniamin's show, I didn't actually know your background and your story. And I was lucky enough to see you talking about your background and being interviewed at the Wellness Center. And that was what prompted me to ask you to perhaps come on today and speak to my audience, because I think it's fascinating how you developed your products and how your company came into manifestation. So, Ian, would you like to explain to everybody what the background is to how your company was started? I understand there was a health situation that led you to find this journey that you went on, which then I think came to you producing these products at Activation. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. It's about a 19-year journey right now.
Wow.
Going into our 20th year of that. Interesting route. So when I was 46 years old, I had major health challenges that were going to terminate my body's life. I had a large tumor in the bottom of my abdomen, which was in a very strategic location, not good. And I had heart disease as well as liver problems that were, a doctor in Toronto was trying to diagnose it as 3 different types of liver cancer. I never had liver cancer. I had a lot of contamination. My enzyme numbers were off the charts. My blood panels were shot. Like, it was just a very bad situation. And every time I would ask somebody why I had what I had going on, none of the medical professionals could answer that question. They would just say, look, what do you mean, why? This is very common in men your age, and your genetic predisposition shows that your family history has had cancer, heart disease. It's very common. We do these operations all the time, and you're just going to have to do what you got to do. And often when you don't do what the medical professionals are telling you to do, they'll give you a prognosis of a very short timeline versus a little bit longer timeline. You might go 3 to 5 years if you do what they say, and you'll do less than 3 years if you don't. And so I was like, okay, well, I remembered when I was 20 years old, my 2 uncles on my mom's side, and I'd take very much after my mom's side. I even looked like one of my uncles. In 1978, they died 2 days apart, both of cancer, and they went down hard. My one uncle went through 1 year of torturous operations and chemotherapy radiation for his liver. The other uncle was diagnosed when he was absolutely filled with cancer. They opened him up and said, just get your affairs in order. He was dead within 3 months. But the interesting thing was, it was high impact because one died in the other one's funeral. And the thing that I realized is they had done everything the doctors told them faithfully, and they died on time because they were, it was really bad for them. And I was in the same boat. I'm thinking, okay, so why would I go to a mentor, an advisor, a treatment person, a professional who has that kind of a prognosis, even doing their treatments? And now it's not 1978, it's 2004. Surely in the new century, we have more knowledge from a natural standpoint, don't we? But apparently they don't. And it was frustrating. My oldest brother is a medical doctor for 30 years in North Bay. He wasn't my doctor, but I would call him when something would come up, and then, the fire's burning. So I'm on the phone with him. And he has basically told me that as a medical doctor, he had a clinic where 11 doctors worked out of as well, that he owned the clinic and they all worked with him. And plus he had his own patients. So he saw thousands of patients come through that clinic over the years of his career. And he said that basically it's genetic predisposition. He saw people who were living to a very old age, eating out of the dumpster and partying their face off. Other people being super conscious, eating organic and juicing and trying to be conscious and dying at 35. And so like, I'm listening to this going, yeah, this is really encouraging. So, and he says, plus you look like Uncle Don and he was dead at 51. So you better pay attention. You're 46 years old. And I was like, this is not cool. I don't want to hear about genetic predisposition. I think that I might be the problem somehow. And it must be something I'm doing. He goes, no, you're doing what everybody else does. I wasn't a drinker. I wasn't into drugs. I wasn't into abusive living at all. And yet these things were happening. So after a few times that medical doctors in Toronto were caught guessing and they were in error with me, I woke up one morning and I thought, there's people on the earth somewhere who know the truth. There has to be. And there's got to be the best of the best out there somewhere, the people who know the most. And I don't know who they are, where they are, how to find them, but at least I know they exist. They have to exist. Of course they do. You get this gut instinct on things. It's like, yeah, why didn't I think of that? Well, how do I find them? Well, I can't find them. I would have to be led to them because you couldn't, right now, I just turned 65 about 4 days ago. I guess 5 days ago now, right? It's the 12th. So on June 7th, I turned 65. Currently, my health is better than I was when I was 25 on the organ function, on the internal. My structural is as good as it was when I was 35, and I'd have had lots of injuries that are now completely repaired. So that's the good news. How did I get there from this very bad state where my body was falling apart to go through that? Well, you could have given me $10 trillion 19 years ago, and I wouldn't have found anything that I found. And I always say I didn't really find anything, it found me. And all I did was open up my mind and say, okay, I think that I can be led if I have the right attitude. I'm open to the idea of my body being totally healed and living for a very long time. I don't have the first clue how to do this. I know that everything I know is killing me right now. I have a lack of knowledge. People perish from a lack of knowledge. And I knew that. So that was a very humbling thing because I was quite a know-it-all leading up to this crash. And I'd also gone bankrupt that year. I had a financial crash because a company I had sold my company to, the company that I sold it to, which was on a royalty agreement, reneged because they were having financial struggles. That put me under. They eventually went under and got bought for 23 cents on the dollar. And that was just a very interesting experience, I could tell you, that where everything in your life that you've ever worked for is now melted away from you. You have nothing, plus you have a bankruptcy on your name. And you have no ability to get credit.
Ian, it sounds to me like you're going through a typical kind of spiritual awakening where life suddenly just takes everything away from you in that moment. And all you're left with, and I'm not talking necessarily religion here, I'm just talking about all you're left with in that moment is there something bigger than me? And how can it guide me through this? And it sounds like you had reached that moment where you knew there must be something else. You didn't know how to reach it, but you just started to kind of, in some way, ask to be shown. Would you say that was how it happened for you?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. It was a moment of total desperation.
Yeah.
So we also have 7 children. They were young at that time.
Yeah.
The oldest one was 19. Then it was 18 and then 13 and down all the way down to 6 years old at that point. My youngest daughter was 6 at the time. And so there's this massive responsibility to support the family and my wife. And they didn't know what to do. So I just knew that if I could be led, so I prayed earnestly, like you talk about powers greater than ourselves. And I asked for a specific direction, that if I would be led to those people, because I couldn't find them, but if I would be led to people, I would listen. I would stop being a know-it-all. because I knew that was a big, I mean, that's what got me into trouble. I knew nothing. And when you're a know-it-all and you know nothing, you got a big problem, like a big ego thing that was ridiculous anyway. I mean, what was that all about? And I also would say things like on the way to this crash point, I would say things like, oh yeah, whatever, I don't care. Really?
Yeah.
Whatever, huh? Hey boy, whatever. What did you say? You don't care? Oh, we'll find out. So what I found out is that I cared 10 million times more than I thought. And when you have things being taken away from you, if your body's going to expire and you're going to be removed from this dimension in the physical plane, and I have not known to experience that prior to this, I don't have recollection of that happening to me before. And whether it did or not is kind of irrelevant at that point. This is this life, and we got everything on the line. Everything is at stake. I have everything to lose. I'm a young man at 46 years old with a huge life ahead and a mission that is not going to be fulfilled if my body gets terminated. And it made me realize just how fragile we are, and that I had better learn.
In spiritual development terms, this is what we call the surrender. It's that moment where you have no other choice than to surrender to that higher power, whether you want to call it God or angels or universal energy. Is in that moment, like you were saying, that you realize that you can't do it on your own. There is something out there that is bigger than you that can help you. And your only way forward is to reach out. And as soon as you do that, like you said, you started to pray. As soon as you ask, there's a saying from when I'm teaching about angels, and it's always three things. And the first one is you have to ask. You have to give permission for this higher power to come into your life. And then the next thing is you ask, and then you believe. You believe that is possible. And it sounds to me like you were going through this crisis, and you actually were saying it in a way to me that you really believe there must be something else out there that you could use or could guide you. And then the third thing is receive. Ask, believe, receive. So we know you've done the first two. So how did the third thing start to manifest for you? How did you start to receive this guidance?
Well, I had this feeling because everything happened slow motion. Like there was no cloud breaks and rays of sunshine that came down and suddenly all of these things started to happen.
Yeah.
It was this very slow motion thing. And I said also in my request to be led to the people who actually had the knowledge that if I was allowed that I would do whatever it takes. If I had to suffer at whatever level, I was wide open to suffer at whatever level. If I had to find resources to invest, then I would do whatever it took. I would have as much fun as required. I would have as much joy as required. I was open to the entire spectrum of whatever it took. And I would continue that journey, and I would not be arrogant. I would not discriminate against people if I didn't, because I was so programmed in North America in my upbringing, and I didn't even know how programmed I was. But I found out that I had many, many programs running in the background of my life that I'd been conditioned to think and have different attitudes towards that were completely incorrect. And they had to be deleted. I was willing to do whatever it took. And that's a pretty daunting statement, because I didn't know what was really going to be required. And when things started to move, I was just, how you got to go up the rungs of a ladder. You can't go to the 10th rung. You got to start at the first one, baby steps. And I started to find out about toxins in food. I started to learn what the word detox meant. I found out that I was full of heavy metals. I had major fungal infections that caused this huge tumor. I was in a quandary of my body literally reaping everything that had been sown up to that, like a farmer plants seeds in the field, you're going to get a harvest. And I was harvesting the ugliest harvest imaginable. And I realized there's no way out of that. I'm going to have to harvest every single thing that had happened. I'd spent 17 years in the oil field, which I was poisoned with lead, cadmium, mercury. I had had exposure to terrible mold in homes we had lived in as we were struggling along with little companies and not being able to afford really awesome places. And that's where I got all these fungal infections. So I had to find out how to stop any further poisoning, get the poisons that were in there out safely, and then rebuild from the ground up and start planting seeds that were good now. And they're going to take a while. They're going to take years to come into fruition. So I was just like, wow.
Yeah, this is a really daunting task for anyone in normal circumstances. But when you feel like you're in a time limited situation, that's even more daunting, because you're realizing now that you've got this huge task ahead of you. And how do you know where to begin? That's the other thing. How do you know where to start?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. It was like, I don't know. So where I did start is I stopped eating all the packaged foods.
Yeah.
Because I was told just stay away from them. Watch out for the commercial meat, because commercial meat is hammered with hormones and antibiotics and all these things that are absolutely catastrophic. So I did the best I could with the given situation to start cleaning that up. And I ate more vegetables for a while. And my body, I lost 90 pounds in the first year from that. Like, not in 2004. It was 2000, because it took a little while for all this information to come in. And in 2005 is where I started to learn some of the things. I had a 36-month window. So if somebody said to you, Michelle, you've got 3 years to live. You're going to be gone in 3 years. You got to do this, this, and this, or you're going to be gone in even a year, maybe. Okay, so if I have 3 years to live, that doesn't mean I'm going to be dead in 3 years, unless I say that I guess I'm going to be dead in 3 years, and I better make the most of it. No, I said I want to use that 3-year window to extend that to 5 years. If I can learn enough in that 3-year period, then I could maybe get 5 years. If I could get 5 years, that's a little bit more comfortable. It's not great, but it's better. And that's kind of how it went. So it went from 3 years to about 5 based on the prognosis. And then it went from 5 to 15 years, because I've really learned a lot during the next phases. And it got more definitive as time went on. So one of the things that I found out about was that, and I thought this was too good to be true. I was sort of sitting back on my couch. This is about 15 years ago now. Okay. So I'm sitting back on my couch at the beginning of this where things are starting to move. I'm starting to get better. I'm starting to feel better. I lost 90 pounds and I was very skinny. My skin was all like orangey yellow because my liver was not working properly. And everything was just being taxed to the maximum, because when you detox that much that quickly, and it was rough. But I thought, what if one day I find out that being healthy is free? Wouldn't that be interesting? But that would be ridiculous, because when I started to look at the cost of organic food, juicing, supplements, modalities, treatments, protocols, wow. I mean, you could spend thousands of dollars a month, literally thousands, if not even more than thousands. And I was like, that's like, but I had this gut instinct that what if? Maybe that's true. Maybe being healthy is free. And I just kept my mind open to that. I didn't claim to know that it was true. I just said, what if? And then as time went on, little suspicions would come up, little signals that maybe there was heading in that direction. And within the first 7 years of this, so between 2004 and 2011, my body was able to completely eliminate the tumor. That was the worst one. My heart disease symptoms were gone within about 4 years. My liver function was back up within 5 years, but it was 7 years until that tumor was dissolved. Once that tumor went away and I went through all that detoxing that my body just didn't need it anymore, got rid of it, I was then in a very safe place. So then I started to still be open. I was still spending a lot of money on learning and devices and technology and all these fancy like med bed stuff and all this stuff that I was learning about and buying all this equipment. The reason I was able to buy it all is because in 2007, I found out about a thing called marine phytoplankton, and I found out about sea minerals. And I didn't know the whole thing on detox yet. That didn't come until 2016, where I started to really get into the detox side. I mean, at the more efficient level. Of course, I was detoxing by not eating poison and doing all these flushes and all that kind of stuff. But that was only getting the surface level stuff up. And when I found out about the marine phytoplankton, all I knew is, and nobody knew about it at the time, is I got it from Europe and I started taking it, and it felt like it was charging my battery up. And as it turns out, we're literally electrical beings running on electrons and biophotons. And we have a battery. Just think about you got to recharge. You go to sleep, you connect to the big battery charger in the sky. When you get nutrition, when you breathe oxygen, the blood carries everything to the cells. It gives you energy. And I was getting more and more energy, and I wasn't using any stimulants. I dropped all stimulants during those years. So no coffee, no caffeine, no nothing. I was just off of everything. And I had this deep cycle charge that I could tap into when I needed to get through the day. And so I started telling people about that in 2007. And in the first couple of years after that, out of the basement of our house in Toronto, we generated about $2.8 million in retail sales from the marine phytoplankton product that we started. And all I did was just tell a few people about it. And then they told their groups.
Yeah.
People had followers, health gurus. And everybody just started buying it from us because we're the only ones who had it. And it was put into a liquid form that I learned about, where it was a sea mineral base with this phytoplankton. And that was the core, that was the start. It gave us a very large amount of money to be able to invest. And again, we've never had, I always just had enough money in our life to survive up to that point. And all of a sudden there was excess money. And I was like, okay, so that's not my money, obviously. I mean, I didn't go out and generate that revenue. All I did was share something with people who invested in themselves with their own money. They gave me the money, and they trusted me to give them something of greater value, which we were doing. And then I thought, well, maybe we should start a company, and maybe it would be the company's money. But that's not the case. The big thing I learned about money during that time was that money is the people's money who went out, they generated their income, they paid their taxes, they paid their expenses, they covered all the things they had to in their life, and then they have some disposable income left over. That disposable income they're very careful with, and they're trusting companies or people to invest their money into that for themselves. It's actually all their money. It accumulated in a bank account, and I didn't touch it. I was like, what do we do with this? I learned that what you do with it is you reinvest it for them into greater learning. And then you find out how to make even better products, even more effective ways. What is the real truth? And this whole time, I'm thinking health should be free. And free means a transfer of expense. If I have less knowledge, I'll spend this much money to be healthy. I'll spend this much time to be healthy. As I learn more, the money and the time expenses go way, 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 way down. And then the little bit that it does cost to actually be healthy displaces all of this. But if you don't have this knowledge over here, you have to keep spending here. And then I learned about
knowledge.
Knowledge
is finding the key to the problem, like you were doing, and trying to find it quickly. And you've done, it sounds like, all the work now. You've done all the testing on yourself, all the research. You've had a lot of experience over the years, and now you've got this package of products that help with these specific situations. That's right.
Now, you mentioned something really important. You talked about a key to the problem. Now, when you don't have the key to the problem is there. You have to bring remedies, because the problem is spinning off a bunch of symptoms. Those symptoms are that your body's struggling. You've got this health issue, you got that health issue. You're getting older. As people age, they expect to get worse. They do, especially as when they get 60, 70, 80, they expect it to get a lot worse because of the wrong thinking. And so all these remedies are provided either from the pharmaceutical companies or the nutraceutical companies. They're actually the same. One uses chemicals and nasty stuff, right? That has all these side effects. One uses more natural products, but really they're the same, because they're dealing with symptoms and deleting the symptoms with a remedy. Then I found out that if you could actually eliminate the problem entirely, you don't need any of the remedies. None. And I thought, well, that's how you get to where it's free, because the transfer of expense goes actually below anything that anybody has to spend. And then you have extra money, which is not costing you anything actually, because you just saved all this time, energy, and effort and money over here. And then you're putting a little bit here, and everything changed. And there was this maturing, definitive time. The other thing that we did with our company, once we had significant money coming into our bank accounts, we set up a proper company. We built a manufacturing facility. We became the manufacturer. Whereas all my colleagues in the space of online marketing, they were running out to contract manufacturers to grab the trending products, the remedies, okay, and making hundreds of millions of dollars off selling remedies. And I went, another flaw, because they're not delivering what the people actually need. They can capitalize on remedies because people want a quick fix. People don't want to go deep and fix the problem. They really don't. They just want, give me the magic pill, give me the magic potion, give me that device, give me this thing. And then their symptoms go down and they think, oh, that worked. But it's the same old problem. It's the old paradigm. So I just patiently, kept the company small and just kept working at getting to that place which we are now, where I found out what the real problems are. What is the thing that is causing the general population to have an average age of 77? And pretty much worldwide in the known world, whether it's Europe or Australia or North America, South America, the average age is about 77 now. And that's either propped up by the pharmaceutical industry, medical establishments, or the nutraceutical industry, natural establishments. It could be naturopath doctors to whoever, and they all help. They're all actually very wonderful. And if they weren't there, people would die in droves. That's actually true. They would die even sooner. So I do appreciate what they do, but it wasn't serving me.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I was looking for, because that's the same old, same old. And then I started to do a statistical analysis on the mainstream versus the health conscious. And we were talking about people who are health conscious, who are mindful, they meditate, they exercise, they eat clean, they love their neighbors, they treat people with respect, they speak well about themselves, they speak well about other people. They're the health conscious. And they're graduating, more and more health conscious all the time. The average age for a health conscious person is 81. I'm going, so what's wrong? What do you mean 77 for mainstream, who listen to the news, do everything they're told, take all the pharmaceuticals, take all the operations, and their average is 77 and the health conscious is only 81.
Yeah.
And I was even seeing, right?
It's really low. I'm really surprised at that.
Yep. Now, the health conscious people are going to have a better quality of life, right? They're not plowing drugs into their system and drinking alcohol all day and poisoning themselves. And they're not eating genetically modified organisms, and they're more fun to be around, definitely, right? But so I just knew there was some massive pieces of the puzzle that were missing. And it's not some magic pill or some magic potion. I knew that it was not that, because I've seen people who are billionaires who have a team of 50 doctors. They're in their mid 40s to early 50s. They've managed to get their body what they claim down to like 18 to 25-year-old. But the amount of effort, they're eating like massive amounts of glop, taking hundreds of pills. Their lifestyle, right, is almost robotic, and no one can afford it. So that's not the way to go. That's not real.
No,
it's not even possible for people to tap in. I'm talking about people like you and me who we serve. We want the real info. Forget all this high-tech stuff. Forget all the massive money required. Are you kidding? Yeah. My whole thing was like, health is free. It's got to be free. And so in 2017, I started to find out about two things. One was how to repair injury and eliminate nano razor blades out of the body from the outside in. And a product came along, which I didn't even like. Everyone, when they found out that I was on this journey and they found that I was getting real results by then, I mean, we're talking 2016. I was in very good condition in 2016 compared to anybody else my age. I had a great deal of knowledge. So they're always trying to pitch me products. Oh, could you, look at my product. My glop is better than your glop. So I would get all this stuff that people would send me. Well, one stood out of the crowd. And I always watched how I found out about things. You know, it had to be something unique, some kind of a weird synchronicity. And I was getting this gentleman named Mike Carey. He was on LinkedIn. He's a missionary. He doesn't have a business. He's a missionary in South America. He's an American citizen living in South America. And he speaks on the phone to people. He listens to their voice. And he can tell from their voice pattern what's wrong with them. He diagnoses them over the phone, and then he sends them remedies.
Wow.
Right. And which is great. He helps
That's
people.
fascinating. Yeah.
And he's tagging me on LinkedIn a few times. And you know, I often delete LinkedIn messages because I just get hammered too hard on LinkedIn, even back in 2016.
Mm.
And then one day, the same one came up again. And this guy says, Ian, you haven't responded to me. I have something really important to tell you about a product that I think you're going to be really interested in. You know, here's my phone number. And when I was about to delete it, I just thought, I'm not going to delete it. I'm just going to phone the phone number right now. It was like on a Sunday afternoon. So I phoned the phone number and he picked it up right away. And I told him who I was. He goes, oh yeah, I've been trying to get a hold of you. He said, LinkedIn. I didn't have any phone number. I go, yeah, no, I appreciate that. He goes, well, he told me a story about what he does and how he helps people. He doesn't charge them for the products. He doesn't own a company that makes products. He just tells them about products that he found out about. And he said, there's this one product that is so powerful. I don't understand why. All I know is that when I tell people about it and they use it, a whole ton of good things happen to them. So he said, I want to give you the name of the gentleman, and he's looking for somebody to invest in his company. And I think you should call him and see if you can help him. And I really think it'll be worth your time. So I went, hey, Mike, that's really cool. Thank you for that. I kept in touch with him a little bit after that as well. I sent people to him to get the voice analysis. It was kind of fun. And right. And so I got a hold of the gentleman who had this very exclusive product. And I said, oh, are you interested in, somebody investing in your company? He goes, no, we've got that all handled. He said, but he told me the story of the product, that they've been selling it through doctors and naturopath doctors and functional medicine people for several years and had outstanding results with it. And I said, okay, it sounds good. I would like to buy some from you. So I bought a case of 12 bottles and he sent it to me in the mail. I was actually traveling in Northern California doing some business meeting. I was out there at the time and I was at a hotel. And so we were just checking out that day. Thankfully, the box arrived the day we were checking out and it was at the desk. And so when I was checking out and the gentleman who I was with in the business thing, they were checking out of their rooms, this box was there. So I quickly opened it and it was a dropper bottle. And I took it out and this gentleman named David was standing beside me. And I don't know why I didn't read the label. I just thought, oh, it's a dropper bottle. I'll just throw a dropper in my mouth because I've done that many times with many products. Usually a dropper bottle, you just squirt it in your mouth and you're good to go. And so I took it out. I squirted one of mine. I said, hey, David, try this new product. And I squirted it in his mouth, the whole dropper. And then I realized I'd made a mistake.
Oh,
because my mouth started to get frozen.
oh yeah. Oh, frozen.
Frozen. No, I was just turning numb fast. So I grabbed a bottle of water. David's still talking to the guy at the desk, right? Checking out of his room. I was already checked out.
Yeah.
And I grabbed a bottle of water and I drank it. And when I did, my epiglottis, like the whole, like what protects your trachea from fluids that you're drinking, was frozen, numb, and it didn't work. And so I drank the water, it went into my trachea, into my lungs.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, right. It's like, it took me 30 seconds to cough it up. As I'm looking over at David, I see him asking for a bottle of water from the guy at the desk. And I rushed over. I said, don't drink the water, right? My voice was already constricting. I was like, talking like this, right?
Wow.
And I hacked up all this water. And so he didn't drink the water. And then anyway, he got checked out. I realized I definitely made a mistake. We went and got into the car and I'm looking at him really nervous because I don't even know him that well. And I'm thinking, what did I just do to this guy? If he didn't drink any water, at least I had some water, but I had to hack it up. So I diluted it a little bit. So it turns out that it's this super concentrated extract from the entire plants of cloves, rosemary, and thyme. It's an old Ayurvedic blend that was ultra concentrated. So it's in the ultimate form. But it's so strong, you're supposed to take 3 drops under your tongue or in water at the time. That's what it is. When I finally read the label, I went, oh, wow. And then I counted the number of drops that come out of one dropper was 42 drops. So I'd taken like ridiculous dose. And I looked, and then we started to drive. I was driving the car. It was a rental car. He's in the passenger seat. And I looked at him. I said, David, are you okay? He goes, yeah, why? I said, really? He goes, does that stuff take headaches away? I said, I have no idea why. He said, well, the last couple of days in our meetings, I have had literally migraine level headaches, and I didn't want to miss the meetings, and I didn't want to complain. I haven't said a word, but he said, literally splitting headaches. And he said, it was just like that right until you put that on my mouth. He said, within 30 seconds of you putting it in my mouth, my headache disappeared. I went, I have no idea. I don't know. It's not made for headaches at all. Not that I know of, because I was told it was all about cellular function and detoxification, getting the heavy metals out, getting the fungal overgrowth gone, getting the yeast overgrowth gone, all that kind of stuff. And I went, oh, so I don't know. And I said, are you sure your headache's gone? And he shook his head really hard. He goes, it's gone. It's definitely, and it was gone. It never came back. So then we had to drive from we're up in like Santa Barbara area. We had to drive all the way through to Orange County. We picked up one other guy at the airport who was supposed to fly out, and the power went out and his plane didn't go up. So we had to go pick him up, and he drove to Orange County with us in the back seat. And the whole way they were talking, and I could barely talk because my vocal cords were, and David could talk. He didn't have that problem I had. I think it's because I drank the water and went into my vocal cords, which it otherwise would have probably just gone down my tongue and been okay. But anyway, that was an experience. And then about 2.5 days later, my voice cracked and all this stuff came out of my throat. And then I had this much, much deeper baritone resonant voice. And I was just like smooth as silk. I could like become a radio announcer. It was really interesting. And so that was my first experience with it. So then all this stuff is supposed to do this and this and this and on and on. The list is really long. And I thought, okay, so all I'm going to do, I'm not even going to release this product. I'm not going to buy it and resell it. I'm going to give it to people because I like direct feedback. Just like Activation from day one has always sold direct to people so that we get a feedback loop. We didn't go the big distributor route and build the company huge through health food stores because it requires education for our products, number one. But number two, we wanted to see what really happens. I want to be directly in touch with our people who we're serving. So that's worked extremely well to give us the feedback loops. And so from 2016 to 2020, which was 4 years, I kept buying it and giving it out and letting people try it. And I got all this feedback. I mean, the craziest feedback of things that people were doing for eye health and cataracts and melanomas and how it made their body just like they were detoxing heavy metals. Their whole lives were improving continuously. And so then I found out how to get more efficient to get it into the packaging, which is not easy because it's a very concentrated product. You have to have special labels and there's all the stuff you got to do. And we finally figured it out. So then we started to release it actually to people within our community and started to see always excellent results. So the product itself had to prove itself to me that it was a valid product to be in our line. And now that we're 2023, right? So we have another 3 years of that going out to our direct people, and people subscribe to our email list, and that's how they get information. That's how they find out about these things. And we've had wonderful testimonies on this particular product, just like that Mike guy originally told me. He says, "You wait and you'll see." And we even did a test in Kenya. I didn't pay for the trial. It was a clinic they had to set up for malaria. This happened in November, December 2019, and January, February 2020. And a friend of mine in California, actually the guy that was in the backseat on that trip down, he said, I want to find out if it's true that it gets rid of malaria, because they said malaria and dengue fever. So I'm like, okay. I gave them 1,000 bottles, no charge. And they sent that to Kenya. It was way too much, way more than they needed, as it turned out. And he was asking me, what dose should I use? And I said, well, just use small doses. And if you need more, give more. So they put 2 drops into a glass of water. They had to register with the government. They had to pay for the license to do this. They had to buy all the kits for testing positive, negative on malaria. And they had, over the course of 4 months, 904 people in 4 different clinics that they set up. and they had 100% kill rate on malaria, whether it was like, depending on the age or the health of the person and how bad it was. Now, 45% of the population on this clinic was 2 drops in a glass of water was a negative test in 12 hours. The next 50% took 2 doses of 2 drops. The last 5% needed either 3 drops, 4 drops, or three doses, 4 doses, or 5 doses, all 2 drops each. And it had 100% kill rate on all 4 trials of a total of 904 people.
That's incredible. So they only had, the maximum only had 4 doses of 2 drops.
Up to 5 doses was the
5
max.
doses of 2 drops for the most difficult situation. Wow.
That's right. Yeah. Well, malaria kills more people than anyone in the world right now, than any disease. Yeah.
That's incredible. And that was a clinical trial in Kenya.
Kenya. And the government took an interest in that. We went through all the red tape, because they're like, well, how do we do this? Who are you guys? What is this stuff? Right. And so we went through all that, and we still have not got an order from Kenya. Right. And that's now 2 years. Don't know why. We answered every question. We're a registered company. We're US FDA. We've got Health Canada site license. We're CGMP. We're USDA organic, which doesn't need to be organic for this one. But it's, we've got all these certifications. We provided everything. So I don't know what's going on with that. I have no idea. Who knows? I haven't done a dengue fever test, but I don't focus on those things anyway. I would love it if a government body would say, hey, let's help the people, because it's very cost effective to do it.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, all this other stuff is happening with our clients. And every time I would tell somebody, like, you interview me on this and I talk about it, people get a hold of it, and then we get another wave of feedback.
Yeah.
And we're not a big marketing company. I would love to be better at marketing, to be more prolific, to have a greater volume. Right now, we have 400,000 units in stock that we can sell to people. This is 100% shelf stable. What we found out was the longer the raw material sits, the stronger it gets. It's really, really strong when you first make it, but it just gets stronger. So it can't expire. It just cannot, because there's nothing that can go in and attack the product. The product also has to be taken individually by itself from other supplements. And when we came up with the iodine, I found it really interesting, because we have this thing called perfect iodine. It's super low dose, super high volume. So you can't hurt yourself with it, because, iodine's got the skull and crossbones on the bottles mostly. Ours doesn't have any of that, because it's actually a nutritional molecule. And your body, every cell in your body requires iodine. It's not just a thyroid thing. That's a whole nother subject. But people would take iodine, it would release a bunch of stuff, and then they would take the Solaris 30 minutes later, and it would just clean up everything. And it doesn't even need the iodine to work well. The iodine just makes it work faster. But it just goes in the body, and it dissolves into water. Like, you put it in water, and you would think it would be clove oil, thyme oil, and rosemary oil, but it's not, because the way it's extracted, it just dissolves in water instantly. And you taste it right away. It has kind of a soapy taste to it because of the clove. And you take it so you don't get that sensation. You can even high dose the stuff. I've taken the full dose, like a full dropper since then, but I put it in 1 ounce of water. It dissolves immediately. I get the 1 ounce shot glass and a glass of water here, clean water with nothing in it. I shoot it back and wash it down immediately, and there's no sensation at all. You don't even taste it.
Yeah.
And that way you can get in, if you want to really clean up stuff fast. It also works externally. You can dilute it down and put it in a spray bottle, and people spray it on their skin, and it gets rid of all their acne. It just cleans the face right up on a low dose. So it has long legs. It goes, like, one little bottle goes a very long way. This is the size of the bottle. This is a 10 ml bottle. This lasts quite a while.
And what's the name of that product again?
We call it Solaris. That's the name of it. Solaris.
And when people are clearing out or detoxing from this product, what are the likely things that they're going to experience? Because detoxing in itself can take a few days to go through your system. Is it different for everyone, or do you notice a sort of pattern of how people go through that detox period?
Well, it's a painless detox. So I've done tons of detoxes that were very painful.
Yes.
So I felt sick. I was down. I couldn't stand it. I mean, like dizzy.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're down. Like, no. This stuff is the exact opposite. The reason this stuff is so different
Right.
is because not only does it go after and neutralize the microbials, the fungus, and those things you don't want, it also goes after heavy metals. But it converts the substance that is in your body that shouldn't be there into an inert matter, so it can't harm you. It just leaves.
So
Like
it
when the
doesn't,
people,
it doesn't create that toxin or poison effect that you normally get with a detox.
that's
When
right.
you're detoxing, what's normally happening, well, this is my understanding, is that all the things in your body that you don't need suddenly start being released, and it creates a little bit like a poisoning. And so that's why you don't feel very well, because all that has to then be cleared through. So it sounds like what you're saying to me, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like what you're saying to me is that Solaris doesn't create that kind of dead poisoning effect from all the things that are in your body. It just neutralizes them and they just flow out.
Correct.
Is that correct? Am I explaining that well?
Yeah, you're talking about Herxheimer.
Yeah,
People
I'm talking about Herxheimer. Yeah. When you have the Herxheimer, you're feeling so bad because the pathogens are dying off. And as they die off, they release a toxin or a poison, whatever you want to call it. But it sounds to me like what you're saying is that with Solaris, that doesn't happen.
That is correct.
It doesn't release a toxin.
That's right. Well, it neutralizes it so that it becomes inert. It becomes harmless matter in your body that you can eliminate.
So you can do the whole detox with Solaris without having to go through Herxheimer.
Exactly. Yep.
Wow. I'm going to put my order in immediately, because that's the worst part of trying to clean out your body, is all those layers of detoxing create those horrible symptoms, from headaches, stomach aches, diarrhea, feeling sick. That's the whole downside of trying to get your body clean.
Correct. Yep. That's a definite downside. And I've been through a lot of them. I'm sure you have experienced it well, because you're well versed in it. And people think that if you don't have a Herxheimer, you're not getting results. And I'm not for that stuff at all.
Well, to me, anything that can make you healthier in a less painful way is a definite yes. I mean, why would you want to make it more difficult on yourself?
That's right. Yeah. Now, the one thing we have in stock right now for Solaris, we have the glass dropper bottles. We have like 9,000 of them. So that's what we're selling. They're bigger. This is 10 milliliters, which is the perfect dose for a month, for maintenance. And the bigger ones are 15 mils. They're not much bigger, but they're another half again as much. And those are what are on the website right now. But it's the same pricing model. So and it's going to give it's exactly the same product. The reason we put it in these little guys is because it's more convenient to carry with you. And if people want to do a little bit throughout the day. Now, there's two other things I got to tell you about this, what it does. When you put it in your mouth, you get a small amount of water. You put 5 drops in the water. You put it in your mouth and you swish it around. So it's very diluted. You're not going to freeze your mouth or anything bad like that. You have a little bit of a flavor, very clean tasting. And you swish it for about a minute. And then you brush your teeth with this in your mouth. You put another thing in there. Brush your teeth with it in your mouth. Brushes beautifully. And then you gargle it a little bit when you're done, and then you swallow it, and you just drink some water afterwards. And that protocol, we have people telling us continuously that it has eliminated all periodontal issues, like as far as gum, gingivitis. These are not medical claims. These are just testimonies. We have done no clinical trials on this to prove that this will guarantee to happen. Okay. All we know is that we get feedback continuously that people get amazing dental health. They don't have to get their teeth cleaned ever again, because it eliminates all the plaque, bacteria. All the buildup. Yeah, because the bacteria builds the plaque. Plus, on the tongue, a lot of unhealthy bacteria on the tongue. So this just keeps things squeaky clean, and you get the beautiful pearly whites with it. So, and then you swallow it, because it's going to go in and continue to do the work in the body. It's that strong. It just needs a tiny bit of work in the mouth, like only a minute, right? Of swishing, and then down, and then the back of the throat.
Can you overdose on these drops? I mean, is there an amount that you recommend each day, or is it something that you find your own balance with?
You can't overdose. There's no toxins in it to, like, there's no LD50, right? So when you put it in your system, your body only wants to use as much as it needs because it's so concentrated. You don't need to use a whole bunch at once. You can, and people have, shocked their system, so to speak, but they didn't notice anything otherwise. It just, if they have a gut issue, if they have like candida overgrowth and they want to deal with it, it's going to help tremendously in that regard. And also deal with the heavy metal problem. But, and then of course, dilute it down into a little spray bottle, just get some distilled water, put some in there. You can spray it in your eyes. People make all kinds of claims that we can't talk about online, with the eyes. It's not made for going in your eyes per se. We don't put it in an eyedropper. You can make your own eyedropper.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Other people have tried that with good results. So you've mentioned two things here about the gut biome. Well, you didn't say the word biome, but you said it cleanses out the candida. And then the second thing you said was it clears out the toxins, like, say, the nano, maybe the nano things that we're breathing in, that we're getting from the air, the water, the food, and certain types of injectables, maybe. So are you saying that it can help with all of those types of nano as well? Is that what you're saying?
It goes right after them. It converts anything that is non-human, that's not supposed to be in the body, whether it's consumed through breathing is number one, the worst thing. Number two, of course, is any kind of pharmaceuticals, any kind of injections or toxic and poison to the body that gets rid of all those.
Yeah.
Anything you're eating that you shouldn't. But I really want to talk about what we're breathing, because what I have learned is that this is the number one cause of death. It guarantees all the mainstream and all the health conscious people to die on time, because you're breathing 11,000 liters of air a day. And the smaller the particle, the greater the volume. So you have rubber dust, brake dust, cremated bodies, industrial pollutants, fuels that are used. In our low-tech world, this is like the lowest tech world on earth. We're using these mobile phones and Wi-Fi that's radiating us. We've got all these particulates coming at us all the time, but you're breathing 11,000 liters a day and you accumulate. This helps to get rid of the accumulation. That's why this is an absolute, I used to tell people, just do a 90-day sprint. Not anymore. This is a must-have for good, because you always want to be cleaning out. You want to get the accumulated waste that you've built up down to a manageable level. Then you can just, every day that it comes in, it leaves the same day. And you do that with the sea minerals, with our trace, with the Oceans Live. People get unrefined sea salt. There's all kinds of ways of doing that part of it. This goes in to turn all that stuff into inert matter and helps the body to eliminate it much faster. Now, you are pumping 2,000 gallons of blood a day through 6,000 miles of cardiovascular system, arteries, veins, and capillaries. And all of those walls of the muscle walls of all your cardiovascular system that is peristaltic and moving the blood through your system, they get harder as time goes on, the more you breathe these nanoparticulates. And the nanoparticulates are very real. You can't see things that are microscopic with the naked eye. Nano is 1,000 times smaller. Pico is 1,000 times smaller. The smaller the particle goes, the greater the volume. You can't smell it, taste it, or sense it, but it's going in, and you're not going to stop breathing anytime soon, hopefully. And you want to, so the blood system carries the oxygen and the nutrients to the cells and carries out the waste, but the blood gets contaminated the longer you're alive, the more you're breathing. So this helps the blood clean up. It's supporting the body to get clean. When your body's clean, it does all the work. Your body does the work. This doesn't cure anything. None of our products cure anything, but they support the body to heal itself. Yeah. That's the whole thing. There is no magic pills or potions, but your body has to.
Where I was going with the candida is that a lot of chronic illnesses are said to begin with the stomach issues, with imbalances in the microbiomes, which are often caused by candida. And then this creates this leaky gut situation where, as you were saying, things and toxins and things go into your bloodstream and you start getting chronic fatigue, or, you start having pains, arthritis, just not feeling well. So it sounds to me like the Solaris, by neutralizing everything in the stomach, would also prevent those types of conditions from building as well. Is that what you're saying?
100%. And the biggest thing that feeds the Candida best friend is heavy metals. Yeah. Like, they're arch enemies, or joint enemies against us, right? Yeah. They're one is distracting the immune system. Well, I don't even call it the immune system anymore. I call it the detoxification system. Yeah. It gets all the congestion out. They work hand in hand. So when you go after the heavy metals and get those out of the system, they can't go through the leaky gut anymore to go and hammer your brain, because that's where people, like autistic children, it's just the worst thing imaginable. They got super leaky guts. They're full of metals, and it just keeps repopulating and keeping them in that downward spiral. So the Solaris goes in to neutralize those things. The way we found out about that, where I actually saw it, seeing is believing, where it was going after the metals, is a company out of Texas had a very expensive technology where they're using ultrasound with a large medical grade plate of the best stainless steel in the world. And on that head, they were using the ultrasound gel for the conductivity. And they found out that this is good for the skin. So they thought, oh, we'll put it into the gel. Yeah. And they did, and a month later, they got a hold of me and told me I owe them $15,000 to replace the head on the machine they've been using with the Solaris in the gel. I said, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, this is a skincare product. You put it in water, dilute it down and spray it in the face. We never said to put it in gel. You never told us you're going to put it in the gel. You didn't tell us you're using it with metal. This stuff goes after metals. It destroyed the plate. This little solution destroyed the plate on their machine that was $15,000. I didn't pay them for the $15,000. I was like, guys, seriously. Yeah. If I would have told you to do that, that would be different. Yeah. But I don't want this going near metal things, right? It cleanses the body out. So that was a big eye opener.
It leached it out from the equipment that they were using, so it wouldn't work so well.
Well, it actually failed in the end, because you have to have that metal for conductivity, but it had worn out the face as they were using it. The metals, it didn't go in the human body or anything like that I know of, but it wrecked the piece of equipment in 1 month. Yeah.
So that's another clear indication that it does what you're saying it does. Wow, this has been fascinating, much more fascinating than I thought it was going to be. I've really enjoyed our chat today. So these products, I'm actually going to be promoting them on my website, and you'll be pleased to know. And so we're in the process of just putting that together right now. So people will be able to find a link to these products at my website, which is goldenheavenonearth.net. And we're going to be setting up a page just for activation products. And the one that you've been talking about today is Solaris. And basically, you're saying it just neutralizes anything in your body that would have created a toxin, and it makes it inert. So it doesn't create even a healing crisis. It just cleanses it straight through. So I'm definitely going to be trying that myself. So I'm going to be making an order the minute we stop recording, because that just sounds incredible. And is there anything else you'd like to say before we finish today, Ian, that you haven't said already?
Oh, yes. The one thing we want to do, we'll provide to you a coupon code so people can get a discount.
Okay.
So you can save some money on this thing, because it's, we'll get them a 20% discount code, and that'll be in your show notes. We'll just make up the code, whatever you want it to say. And if they use that when they're checking out, they can get 20% off whatever they order.
That's incredible. I've really enjoyed speaking to you today. It's been very interesting, and I'm sure that everybody's going to really enjoy hearing what you have to say when I play this back on my channels. So thank you very much for spending time with me. It hasn't felt like I'm working. It's been so interesting. So thank you very much, Ian. And hopefully you'll come back next time and tell us some more about the other products that you have.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, these are the conversations that make life very joyful.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ian. Take care now. Bye.
Bye-bye.